The Deception. The twin suns of Kepler 442 cast their warm light across the rolling hills of Haven's Rest as another peaceful day began on the human colony. Sarah Chen wiped the morning dew from her greenhouse windows and smiled at the sight of tomatoes growing fat and red on their vines. The artificial gravity generators hummed quietly beneath the settlement, creating the perfect Earth-like environment that had drawn 12,000 colonists to this distant world. Marcus Webb drove his mining transport along the dusty road that connected the residential district to the mineral extraction sites in the northern mountains. His cargo hold was filled with rare earth elements that would be shipped back to Earth within the month. The mining operation had been incredibly successful, pulling valuable resources from the planet's crust with efficiency that impressed even the most experienced engineers. Dr. Elena Rodriguez finished her morning rounds at the medical center, checking on patients who had minor injuries from their work in the fields and mines. The colony's health records showed remarkable statistics: low injury rates, excellent nutrition, and a population that seemed unusually fit and healthy for people living on a frontier world. Children played in the central plaza while their parents worked, their laughter echoing off the simple buildings that housed families from dozens of Earth nations. The colony's administrative center buzzed with quiet activity as Director James Harrison reviewed the weekly production reports. Haven's Rest was exceeding all expectations for a 5-year-old settlement. Their agricultural output fed not only themselves but provided surplus for 3 neighboring star systems. The mining operations had discovered deposits of rare minerals that were essential for spacecraft construction. Everything looked perfect from an outside perspective. High above the planet's atmosphere, hidden behind the dark side of Haven's Rest's largest moon, alien eyes watched every movement through powerful scanners. The Zephyrian reconnaissance vessel had been observing the human settlement for 6 standard weeks, cataloging what they believed were obvious weaknesses and identifying the most valuable targets for their upcoming raid. Commander Thaxton studied the holographic displays that showed detailed scans of the human colony spread out across the planet's surface. His reptilian features remained calm as he examined the data, but internal excitement grew with each passing day. The scans showed exactly what Zephyrian intelligence had predicted: another soft human settlement focused entirely on resource extraction and agriculture with minimal defensive capabilities. The humans had constructed their buildings in efficient clusters around natural resources, with no defensive walls or fortified positions visible anywhere in the settlement. Their communication arrays were standard civilian models designed for commercial traffic rather than military coordination. The colonists moved through their daily routines with the relaxed attitude of people who had never faced serious danger. Most telling of all, the largest ships in orbit around Haven's Rest were cargo haulers and passenger transports. No military vessels appeared on any of their scans. No defensive satellites guarded the system's entry points. No patrol craft monitored the outer planets. The humans had left themselves completely vulnerable to attack. Just as they had done at 17 other colonies, the Zephyrians had successfully raided over the past 2 years. Thaxton activated his communication console and sent an encrypted message to the main Zephyrian battle fleet waiting in the next star system. The message was brief but decisive. Target confirmed. Human settlement shows no military presence. Request permission to proceed with capture operation. The response arrived within hours, transmitted across the vast distances between stars through quantum communication arrays. Fleet Admiral Corvex had reviewed the reconnaissance data and approved the attack. 3 assault ships would be sufficient to overwhelm the human defenses and capture the valuable resources that Haven's Rest had been accumulating for years. The Zephyrian Empire had built its expansion on exactly these kinds of operations: quick strikes against isolated human settlements, taking what they needed before any organized response could arrive. Humans were known throughout the galaxy for spreading themselves thin across hundreds of worlds, prioritizing commerce and exploration over military strength. It made them easy targets for more aggressive species. As the Zephyrian assault ships entered the Haven's Rest system under cover of darkness, their crews prepared for what they expected would be another routine conquest. The lead ship's captain, Vorthak, briefed his soldiers on their objectives. Disable the communication arrays first to prevent distress calls, then secure the mining facilities and agricultural processing centers. Civilian casualties were to be minimized since healthy humans made valuable slaves in Zephyrian labor camps. Down on Haven's Rest, life continued its normal rhythm as the colonists prepared for another productive day. Sarah Chen opened her greenhouse early to tend to seedlings that would be transplanted next week. Marcus Webb loaded his transport with drilling equipment for a new mining site they had discovered in the eastern mountains. Dr. Rodriguez prepared medical supplies for a routine health inspection of the colony's children. None of them seemed aware of the 3 heavily armed ships now entering their planet's atmosphere. The attack began at dawn, just as most colonists were starting their morning routines. The first sign of trouble came as streaks of energy fire lit up the sky, followed by the distinctive whine of Zephyrian pulse weapons. The assault ships had broken through the cloud cover in perfect formation, their weapon systems targeting what appeared to be the colony's most critical infrastructure. The main communication tower erupted in flames as concentrated energy beams melted through its metal framework. The central power station sparked and went dark as alien weapons systematically destroyed what they believed were the settlement's most vulnerable points. Secondary explosions rippled across the agricultural processing facility as stored grain and equipment caught fire. But something was wrong. Instead of panicked civilians running in terror, the Zephyrians saw organized movement throughout the settlement. Colonists moved with purpose and coordination that seemed impossible for simple farmers and miners. Within minutes of the first attack, defensive positions appeared throughout Haven's Rest as humans took cover behind structures that suddenly revealed reinforced walls and weapon ports. Sarah Chen had been watering her tomatoes when the first explosions shook her greenhouse. Instead of hiding, she moved quickly to what appeared to be a tool shed behind her garden plots. Her fingers entered a complex code on what looked like an ordinary lock, but the door that opened revealed military-grade communication equipment and weapon storage. Marcus Webb abandoned his mining transport and ran toward what the Zephyrians had identified as a simple equipment garage. But when he reached the building, hidden panels slid open to reveal the barrel of a plasma cannon that began tracking the nearest assault ship. His mining experience had taught him to operate heavy machinery, but the Zephyrians were about to learn that his previous training had involved much more than extracting minerals from planetary surfaces. Dr. Rodriguez moved through the medical center with calm efficiency, but instead of treating injured civilians, she was coordinating defensive positions through a communication network that the Zephyrians' intelligence scans had completely missed. Her medical training had prepared her to save lives, but her other qualifications involved tactical coordination and strategic planning. Director Harrison stood in what appeared to be the colony's simple administrative building, but the room around him transformed as hidden panels revealed military command consoles and tactical displays. His morning production reports had been genuine, but they represented only half of Haven's Rest's true purpose. The Zephyrian ground forces landed in the central plaza expecting to face frightened farmers. Instead, they found themselves under coordinated fire from positions that hadn't existed on their surveillance scans. Human defenders emerged from concealed bunkers and fortified positions, their weapons and tactics showing training that no simple colonist should possess. Vorthak watched his tactical display with growing alarm as his forces took casualties they had never expected. The humans were fighting like experienced soldiers rather than civilian miners and farmers. Their weapons were military-grade equipment that matched or exceeded Zephyrian technology. Their coordination suggested command and control systems that were far more sophisticated than anything his reconnaissance had detected. Commander Thaxon received urgent reports from his ground forces as the battle intensified beyond all expectations. The human settlement that had appeared so vulnerable from orbit was revealing itself as something entirely different. Hidden defensive systems were coming online throughout the colony, while the colonists themselves fought with skills that suggested extensive military training. The Zephyrians had made a critical error in their intelligence assessment. Haven's Rest was not simply a mining and agricultural colony. It was something much more dangerous, and they were about to discover just how seriously they had underestimated human strategic planning. As the first day of battle drew to a close, both sides prepared for a conflict that would be far more significant than anyone had originally anticipated. The Zephyrians had attacked what they believed was an easy target, but Haven's Rest was about to teach them a lesson about the true nature of human expansion into the galaxy. The Awakening. The second day of battle began before dawn as both sides regrouped and prepared for continued fighting. Commander Faxon studied the tactical reports from his ground forces with growing concern. His assault teams had expected to control the human settlement within hours, but instead they found themselves in defensive positions, struggling to hold territory they had captured during the initial attack. Director Harrison stood in the true command center of Haven's Rest, 3 levels beneath the administrative building that the Zephyrians had dismissed as unimportant. The room was filled with military personnel who had been living undercover as colonists for years, their real identities known only to a select few. The holographic displays around him showed not just the local battle, but strategic positions throughout this entire sector of the galaxy. Signal sent and confirmed, reported Communications Officer Janet Torres, whose public identity had been that of a simple agricultural coordinator. Fleet Command has received our activation code and is implementing Protocol 7 across all human settlements within 50 light years. Harrison nodded grimly as he reviewed the incoming data. Haven's Rest had never been intended as a permanent deception. It was designed as an early warning system and forward military base, disguised as a civilian colony to monitor Zephyrian expansion in this region of space. The agricultural and mining operations had been completely genuine, providing both cover for their real mission and valuable resources for the human war effort. Dr. Rodriguez, now revealed as Major Rodriguez of the Human Defense Corps, coordinated defensive positions throughout the settlement. Her medical training was real, but her primary expertise involved battlefield tactics and strategic planning. The colonists under her command had been carefully selected for their ability to maintain their civilian covers while preparing for exactly this kind of situation. The Zephyrian ground forces found themselves facing opponents who knew every building, every hidden passage, and every defensive position in the settlement. What had appeared to be simple agricultural equipment revealed secondary functions as communication relays and sensor arrays. Mining vehicles converted into mobile weapons platforms. Even the children's playground in the central plaza concealed the entrance to an underground command bunker. Marcus Webb operated a plasma cannon that emerged from what the Zephyrians had cataloged as a mineral processing facility. His mining experience had been genuine, but his previous career as a weapons specialist in the human space marines made him deadly effective against alien aircraft. The Zephyrian assault ships discovered that their air superiority was not as complete as they had assumed. Sarah Chen coordinated supply lines and logistics from her greenhouse complex, which connected to underground tunnels that linked every major building in the settlement. Her agricultural expertise was real and valuable, but her secondary training in military engineering allowed her to turn the colony's infrastructure into a defensive network that could withstand extended siege conditions. High above the planet, Commander Faxon faced a dilemma that threatened to destroy everything the Zephyrian Empire had planned for this sector. His reconnaissance data had been completely wrong. The human colony was not a soft target, but a disguised military installation with capabilities that matched or exceeded his own forces. Worse, intercepted human communications suggested that this was not an isolated incident, but part of a much larger strategic deception. The emergency signal from Haven's Rest had traveled through quantum communication networks at faster than light speeds, reaching human defense command centers throughout the galaxy. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours of the initial attack, human military forces began converging on the Haven's Rest system from dozens of different directions. Captain Sarah Kim received the alert while her destroyer squadron was conducting what appeared to be routine merchant escort duties near the Proxima Centauri system. In reality, her ships had been positioned as part of the same strategic network that included Haven's Rest. Her 3 destroyers immediately changed course, their military-grade hyperspace drives pushing them toward the battle at maximum velocity. Admiral Chen Wang commanded the heavy cruiser Unconquerable from the Sol System's main shipyards. His vessel had been officially listed as undergoing routine maintenance, but the work had been completed weeks ago. The ship and its crew were actually standing by as part of humanity's rapid response network, ready to deploy anywhere in human space within days rather than months. Throughout human territory, similar scenes played out as the true nature of humanity's expansion strategy revealed itself. What alien species had interpreted as scattered, vulnerable colonies connected by slow merchant ships was actually a carefully coordinated military network. Every settlement included trained personnel and hidden defensive capabilities. Every trade route was monitored by vessels that could quickly convert to military functions. The Zephyrian Empire had built their expansion strategy on attacking isolated human settlements before help could arrive. They had never faced a situation where the helpless colony was actually a military base, and where human reinforcements were already positioned within striking distance. On Haven's Rest, the battle entered its 3rd day with both sides locked in fierce combat throughout the settlement. The Zephyrians controlled parts of the northern mining district, but they had been unable to secure the communication arrays or disable the human command structure. Their casualties were mounting far beyond acceptable levels for what was supposed to be a simple raid. Director Harrison reviewed tactical reports that showed human reinforcements would arrive within 18 hours. The first vessels to reach the system would be fast attack craft from nearby patrol stations, followed by larger ships carrying additional troops and heavy weapons. Haven's Rest just needed to hold out until help arrived. The Zephyrian commander faced a critical decision. His forces could probably capture the human settlement if he committed his reserve units and accepted heavy casualties. But intercepted communications suggested that this single colony was part of a much larger network of disguised military installations. Attacking Haven's Rest might trigger a response that the Zephyrian Empire was not prepared to handle. The first human reinforcements arrived not as massive battleships, but as seemingly innocent cargo vessels that had been conducting trade missions in nearby systems. The merchant ships quickly revealed their true nature as their cargo holds opened to deploy squadrons of fighter craft and assault shuttles. What had appeared to be commercial shipping was actually a disguised military logistics network. Commander Thaxon watched his tactical displays with growing alarm as more human vessels entered the system. Each ship that arrived was supposedly a civilian craft, but they all carried military-grade weapons and trained combat personnel. The humans had created a deception that operated on multiple levels, from individual colonies to entire commercial networks. The battle reached its climax as Admiral Chen Wang's heavy cruiser Unconquerable dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Haven's Rest system. The massive vessel had traveled from Earth in less than 48 hours, a feat that should have been impossible for anything other than the fastest military courier ships. Its arrival sent a clear message about humanity's true military capabilities. The Zephyrian assault fleet found itself outnumbered and outgunned by opponents who had been planning for exactly this scenario. Their intelligence about human military capabilities had been as wrong as their assessment of individual colonies. Humanity had not spread across the galaxy as vulnerable settlers, but as a coordinated military force disguised as peaceful traders and farmers. Commander Thaxon made the only decision that could save his remaining forces. The Zephyrian ships withdrew from Haven's Rest under cover of long-range missile bombardment, their crews having learned a costly lesson about underestimating human strategic planning. In the aftermath of the battle, Haven's Rest began the process of rebuilding while maintaining its cover as a civilian colony. The agricultural and mining operations would continue, providing both genuine economic value and concealment for the settlement's military functions. Dr. Rodriguez returned to her medical duties while keeping her tactical coordination responsibilities. Marcus Webb resumed mining operations while maintaining the defensive systems he had helped reveal. The Zephyrian Empire faced a strategic crisis as reports from Haven's Rest forced them to reconsider everything they thought they knew about human expansion. Their successful raids on isolated colonies had not been victories against weak opponents, but carefully orchestrated intelligence-gathering operations. Humanity had been studying Zephyrian tactics and capabilities, while appearing vulnerable and unprepared. Director Harrison filed his official report with Human Defense Command, documenting lessons learned from the first major test of their strategic deception network. Haven's Rest had proven that human settlements could maintain their civilian functions while serving as effective military installations. The colonists had successfully defended their home while preserving the larger strategic advantages that came from appearing weaker than they actually were. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson about the true nature of human expansion into space. What appeared to be scattered farming and mining colonies were actually nodes in a vast defensive network. Humanity had not spread across the stars as vulnerable settlers, but as a military force that understood the value of strategic deception. The Zephyrian Empire and other aggressive species would need to completely reassess their expansion strategies now that they understood the real capabilities of human civilization. The age of easy raids on supposedly defenseless human colonies had come to an end, replaced by the knowledge that attacking any human settlement might trigger a response from the entire human military network. Haven's Rest returned to its peaceful daily routines, but now everyone in the galaxy knew that appearances could be very deceiving when dealing with human ingenuity and strategic planning.